And good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of In the Weather World. It's Tuesday, March 7th, 2017, and we're going to get to talk about something we really haven't got to talk much about this winter, and that is some cold and maybe even a little bit of snow coming up for the weekend here. So let's get right to it. Now, I posted this on the Facebook page yesterday talking about, yes, we do have a storm, the models are showing it, and they are in generally good agreement with this storm. They all have a storm. They're similar. There's still some differences, which is to be expected, but it's enough confidence that we can at least talk about this. But we still need to talk about specifically the amount of cold air that we'll have in place, the timing of the storm, and the actual track it takes, which is dependent on the overall pattern and the setup in the atmosphere. And we're going to talk about that in this video and kind of explain everything that's going on. So let's go ahead and dive right into the cold air part of the equation here. Now that comes in during the day on Friday. We'll still be mild as we go into Thursday. Temperatures in the 50s and even 60s across much of the area. And then this Arctic front drops down to the south on Friday. Will be a little storm system that rides along it as well. Could bring some rain or snow showers, especially to northern Maryland on Friday. But I don't expect issues from that given that it's just going to be too warm. Now that front will drop down to the south, and you can see all this cold air up in Canada and the northern Great Plains. That will start to drop south here. And on Saturday, that front is all the way down to near Florida. The cold air established over the East Coast. Highs Saturday probably only in the 30s, maybe mid-30s at that. And the same thing goes for Sunday with the cold air still stuck over the region. Now, again, the track of the storm will determine how much cold air we have. If the track is too far north, it will bring warm air up, and we won't be able to get snow. So the track plays a big key in that, and that's what I want to get into now is, do we have a favorable pattern in the atmosphere that will allow for the storm to take a favorable track where we won't see that warm air get thrown up and a change over to rain? So here's what the pattern looks like right now. We have our front that's right in this region that's coming through today, giving us those showers that'll last overnight into Wednesday morning. This front also brought a lot of severe weather to the Midwest and plains yesterday. Several tornadoes and a lot of damaging wind reports as well. But if we turn our attention well back out towards the west, look over Alaska here, we do have a ridge, which is actually a block set up here. And basically what you can think of a block is, think of it like a construction zone in a highway that shuts down the highway and disrupts flow, makes you take a detour. So this ridge makes the jet stream essentially take a detour, so it redirects it up and over. But because we have this ridge here, we have to have a trough immediately downstream of it. That's just simple physics and it's wave motion if you want to get specific. But you can think of it like trying to put two mountains next to each other. The ridges would be your mountains. If you try to put two ridges next to each other, you just have one big mountain, because in order to have two mountains next to each other, you have to have some sort of valley or low point in between it. So in between a ridge, you have to have a trough. So we have that here with this upper low. Now this upper low, what it's doing is it's preventing the West Coast from seeing a ridge. Notice how these black lines, they come in off the Pacific relatively west to east, or relatively straight. They don't curve upward or they don't curve downward. If they curve upward, it would be a ridge. Downward would be a trough. And if you want a southern storm, which is what we want, you've probably heard in our area that our big snows, they come from the south. The reason why is because there are storm systems that dive down towards the south, or the southern branch of the jet stream really has the energy with it. But if you want the storm to take south, you have to get a ridge on the west coast to redirect the flow down towards the south and east. And with this zonal flow, or this straight flow over the west coast, any piece of energy that comes in off the Pacific will just track off towards the east, kind of like this upper low did here, and it tracks to our north, and we won't get anything. So the question is can we get some sort of ridge to form over the west coast? And the answer is, I think so. Now here we are. This is the GFS computer model, the American computer model. On Thursday, we still have that flat or straight ridge or straight flow over the west coast here. Now what I want you to watch as I put this into motion and take it forward here, this upper low that's sitting right here is going to push off towards the west here, and you're actually going to see it reform here. And the result is that this ridge on the west coast is going to start to form. It's not going to be real strong, but it will be just enough that as the piece of energy drops into the country out of Canada, it will actually be able to take a more southeast path rather than an eastward path. So as I put this into motion here, you're going to see that happen. I'll take you out to early Saturday morning. Notice how the low is formed out here, and it's weakened here, and now we see more of an upward curve in these lines. Now our piece of energy that we're watching is right here, and that's actually now going to be able to dive down towards the south and east, which is what we wanted to see in the first place. So take a look at the surface map here from the GFS. Here's our storm system. There's the snow fading into rain. As you go down south, it gets warmer. So the track of the low is going to start here and work its way southward and then off to the coast like that. That's what the GFS is going to show you as we dive down towards the south. But notice how it just barely grazes our area with snow. It's actually pushed too far south, and the reason why is because we have such a strong supply of cold air pushing southward. It actually forces the low further to the south. So our area just gets grazed, and parts of southern Maryland may see a little bit of snow from this, maybe a couple inches at the most, but it's really not going to be that big of an impact. If we take a look at the European model, here's the low, Texas, Oklahoma Panhandle on early Saturday morning. Go to Sunday morning, the low is actually further south than what the GFS had, and it's because, again, it has a very strong flow of cold air that keeps the low suppressed. And actually, the European model has much less snow than the GFS has across the area. In fact, the European has nothing across our area. So the question is, where does this storm specifically track? And that's going to determine how much snow we see. The one thing I will point out, though, is unless this storm really tracks to the north and does almost a 360 from what we've been seeing, southern areas will be favored with this storm, given that the cold air will be in place and that this is a southern moving storm. Here's the European model snow map. Like I said, nothing across our area. And it's just because the storm goes so far south, it never gets a chance to get any precipitation up our area. In fact, the European actually is a little bit warmer on Sunday, pushing highs up to around 40, which I don't think is correct. The GFS computer model, however, is a little bit farther north, still far enough south we really don't see much, but a little bit farther north. Southern Maryland sees an inch to maybe 3-4 inches across extreme southern and Delmarva, and then several inches down into central Virginia as well. But notice northern Maryland, maybe a couple tenths of an inch at most. So we have to figure out all of this. But we do know that there will be a storm, and we do know that we will have the cold air in place this weekend. What we still don't know is the track of the storm. Is it going to track too far south? Is it going to be just right? Will it track further north? And the thing to keep in mind is the models right now have a very suppressed storm that's too far south, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, because one of the things, it's a little rule of forecasting, is the models will tend to correct north within about 72 to 84 hours. You'll start to see a northward trend in the computer models. So the fact that they're diving south now isn't necessarily a bad thing. It gives room that if the models do start to shift the track of the storm north, it puts us more in a favorable spot. But still a lot of questions with that. Now, it doesn't always happen, but that is a general idea that we a lot of times get anytime we're tracking storms. And then also, of course, we have to figure out, is this going to be more towards the early morning or the daytime? If this is a daytime snow event, you have to fight the sun as well. Even if the temperature's in the 20s, you still have to fight the snow. And that would just really mean that travel impacts would be less, because the sun is going to still get enough radiation into the earth that the roads will probably just be wet as opposed to icy. But if this is more an overnight event or early morning, we could see some more travel problems. So something we're going to continue to watch, and of course I'll keep you up to date as we go forward here. And of course, you can always stay up to date on the Facebook, follow me on Twitter as well, and of course the website wxandrew.com. Have a great evening.